Lawbreakers who get stopped on the road by the police often use various violent or aggressive tactics to get out of an arrest. But in some cases, cops have to deal with flirtatious and seductive charms. What happens when offenders try to flirt with the police in order to avoid being booked or arrested? Here are real cases caught on camera. You wouldn't believe the tricks that these offenders have up their sleeves. These are situations where the fibers of the policeman were put to the test by suspects who were caught breaking the law. Let's start off with Kelly Barton, the drunk negotiator. Kelly Barton, a 48-year-old lady, drove head-on into a lamppost, knocking it down while she was on duty transporting a special needs patient. When the police arrived at the scene of the accident, Kelly wasn't quite herself. She at least admitted that she had taken some alcohol, but she left out very important information like how much alcohol she had taken and who was driving the vehicle when the accident occurred. It was her job to drive the vehicle, and it didn't make any sense to push that responsibility onto anybody else. But in spite of it being her job, she argued that she wasn't the driver. Unfortunately for her, the lie did not hold up for long, as there were a lot of security cameras around. A security camera footage back at the gas station revealed that she was undoubtedly behind the wheel, and she was immediately charged with a DUI and neglect of responsibility. It didn't end there, as an ambulance arrived to perform some confirmatory tests on her, such as her blood alcohol and other tests. Kelly knew that the charges could only get worse if she didn't do something to make all this go away. She decided to pull the oldest trick in the book, flirting with officers, in the hope that things would de-escalate. Now, it was already considerable risk flirting with one officer.
You hands.
But flirting with all of them at the same time?
Let them do what they gotta do. Come on, boys.
That was outrageous. After the standard checks, it was clear that Kelly's blood alcohol was way over the legal limit, and she was immediately arrested while putting up some resistance. Her charms did not work. Perhaps some other time, Kelly.
I would do him in a way that he won't admit. Hey, look, he can look tough all he wants.
But if you think Kelly was insane for flirting with men of the law, how about the 18-year-old clout chaser, Skylar Floss, who took lies and deceit to a whole other level by posting a video online where she bragged about charming her way into the heart of a cop and getting away with a DUI. Skylar was pulled over by a police officer when he noticed her swerve on the road. It suggested that she may be experiencing a driving impairment, which typically happens when you drink. As she stopped her vehicle, he approached her and started to question her. Here's the problem. Skylar made a video afterwards claiming that she flirted with an officer and she was let off with just a warning. She even hinted at a possible date with the cops and she got his phone number.
He was hot. So I'm getting lunch with him tomorrow.
Now, this story is very implicating, and if it was true, then the officer would face some serious problems at work. Fortunately for him, the officer had a body cam that recorded all of the interactions for that day. And guess what? The video provides evidence that does not support Skylar's claims. As a matter of fact, it's the complete opposite. The deputy did give Skylar a card, but it didn't include his own number. Rather, it was a gesture with the information of the sheriff's department in case she needed it. So it certainly wasn't an invitation to a personal meeting. Skylar went overboard in her video by spreading false information about illegally getting out of a DUI, while she laughed and bragged about her conquest.
I got out of a DUI and got let off with a warning. That officer deserves a raise.
It was also a perfect example of how a person may exploit the kindness of an officer. In her video, she went further to lie about blowing a 3.8 on the breathalyzer.
I blew a 3.8 and he let me off with a warning.
Which was false because according to the officer's cam video, she wasn't even tested at all. The interesting part of the lie was that the legal level for driving is around 0.8. This stage already puts a strain on driving. So a reading on 3.8 would mean that Skylar was dangerously near death because respiratory system failure is at its peak at 4.0. However, this does not mean that Skylar wasn't actually drunk while driving. Upon further investigations, other videos were discovered of the 18-year-old guzzling tequila right out of the bottle and acting out like she had been partying hard. This was just a couple of hours before she was stopped by the officer. When she was confronted about the issue, she owned up to her lies and admitted that she only posted this false information on social media for attention. She also admitted that the officer never asked her out. She must be one lucky person, because there was no disciplinary measure whatsoever after her confession. This may be because the cop also played a part by not doing a routine test on her, as he should have when he stopped her. Not everyone gets gets away that easily, though. This was the case for Lydia Badillo, who was intercepted by officers while trying to bring in illegal immigrants through the Mexican border. Lydia was stopped by an officer for a routine check, and as the officer realized that something wasn't adding up, she decided to try a seduction tactic. As the officer detected that something was wrong with the IDs that she presented, Lydia started to stare directly into the eyes of the officer and giggle. She started to compliment his looks.
Just wait for me right here, okay? You don't have anything?
I'm looking at your eyes. Sorry, sir.
What?
I'm looking at your eyes.
Why?
Because you look pretty handsome.
This was obviously a trick, and the officer definitely wasn't oblivious to this game. The officer carried out due diligence on the driving licenses that Lydia presented, and the results were completely wrong, meaning that they were fake. With further investigations, the officer sniffed out that the two women riding with Lydia were both illegal immigrants all the way from El Salvador. It gets worse still. These women were actually transported through a well-known service that forced immigrant women into bondage by making them pay imposed debt through all kinds of labor, including sexual activities. Lydia was immediately arrested and charged, while the two women who were in the car with her were sent back across the border. This singular act may have saved these women from a life of pain, regret, and awful treatment. While Lydia's flirtatious act didn't work at all, there are other situations where it may as well have, like the case of Brooke Teague. According to rumors, she and the officer are still together to this very day. Now here's how it happened. An officer noticed Brooke's car swerving out of control slightly, and he pulled her over. This kind of driving was usually a sign of intoxication or probably a passenger trying to call attention to themselves for help, so the officer had to find out what the problem was. She greeted him in a cheerful manner, and a conversation ensued. The cop could tell by her countenance that she had had a bit too much to drink. She was really chatty, and the cop undoubtedly could smell alcohol in her breath.
Just one drink.
Yep. Yes,
Final
sir.
answer.
Miller.
A Miller Lite.
Yes. I won't lie to you, a Miller Lite.
The officer asked her to step out for a sobriety test, which took longer than it should have because she was so intoxicated that she couldn't comport herself. The good thing was that she cooperated all the way through and even made jokes.
You're smiling. I can't help it.
All right, stop.
As expected, Brooke failed all the sobriety tests, and the officer had no choice but to arrest her. A thorough search of her vehicle showed nothing of significance, just a broken car seat. Brooke was put at the back of the police vehicle and driven down to the station, where she continued to have engaging conversations with the officer. They both certainly had chemistry, and yet kept things professional, following through with the requirements for the investigation without any delays. Brooke had to take a blood alcohol test, which she easily agreed to. She scored 0.14 on the breathalyzer, which was close to twice the legal limit. She was certainly intoxicated and had to face the consequences of her actions, regardless of how close she had become to the police officer. Brooke was placed in jail for the night to get sober, and as punishment, her license was temporarily suspended. The interaction between Brooke and the officer made the process relatively seamless. There may have been ulterior motives, but there was definitely respect, which made investigations easier. Maybe things would have been much different if they met at a party rather than the ugly situation of cop and lawbreaker. That's all from us. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on your notification to get notified of our next video. And check out our previous videos for more unbelievable stuff. Have fun.